You ever sit down on a Saturday morning thinking the biggest problem you'll face is whether to add more peanut butter to your toast, and then suddenly find yourself squaring off against the neighborhood dictator, brass key in hand, trying to unlock your front door like it's some government checkpoint? Because that's exactly where I found myself. Mid-bite coffee brewing, not a care in the world, when the sound of metal scraping my front lock shattered the quiet I'd spent 12 years protecting. I'm not exaggerating either. One second I'm thinking about the crossword, the next I'm staring at Gloria Powell, HOA president, and self-appointed queen of suburbia, fiddling with a master key like she owns the whole damn block.
The nerve of this woman standing there in her navy blazer and pressed slacks clipboard held so tight it could have been body armor. She didn't even flinch when the lock wouldn't budge, just stared straight at me through the window and called 911, telling the dispatcher I was obstructing her authority. Picture it, me in slippers, toast in hand, being treated like a criminal in my own kitchen. You ever had to defend your right to eat breakfast? Saturday mornings used to be sacred around here. Sun streaming through bay windows. I refinished myself after retiring from 32 years teaching constitutional law, birds making a racket outside, the smell of fresh coffee drifting across floors I'd sanded with my own hands. I never dreamed the biggest drama I'd face in this neighborhood was someone trying to play kingpin with a brass key and a fake emergency. But there she was, chin high, marching up my walk like a general about to invade, jamming that key into my lock with more force every time it refused to turn her eyes, scanning my porch for evidence of what non-compliance, unauthorized use of butter knives. I kept calm mostly out of habit because Gloria's never been the type to back down. And I've spent a lifetime untangling legal messes. Still, there's nothing in any law book about what to do when your HOA president tries to stage a coup before you finished your coffee. So I did what any rational person would do. I activated the doorbell camera my son Jordan insisted I get for Christmas, stepped up to the intercom and said, "Excuse me, ma'am, this is private property. HOA covenants say you need 72-hour written notice for any inspection. There's no emergency clause, no matter what brass key you're holding." You could see her jaw tighten like she just bit into a lemon. Instead of backing off, she started snapping photos of my entryway, muttering about evidence for immediate board review and potential legal action. Meanwhile, I'm recording every second because after decades wrangling law students, you learn to keep receipts. Within minutes, the neighbors started popping out of their houses, curtains, twitching heads, poking around fences like prairie dogs at a fireworks show. Old Mrs. Henderson was watering her tulips, but never once looked at the ground. Gloria played to her audience, raising her voice for dramatic effect. "You're interfering with official board business. Harold, this is an emergency protocol situation." I half expected her to declare martial law right there on my front steps. The brass key was useless, but she kept waving it like it was some magical scepter. That's when my phone buzzed a message from Jordan, who happens to be the county sheriff, which Gloria didn't know. Talk about timing. The whole thing would have been hilarious if it wasn't happening to me. Gloria called 911 again, telling them I was blocking a mandatory safety inspection, and the dispatcher, bless her, sounded skeptical. But pretty soon, a patrol car rolled up and out stepped Officer Blake Miller, clipboard in hand, trying to make sense of Gloria's mix of official-sounding nonsense and theatrical hand gestures. She shoved her paperwork at him, waving that brass key for emphasis, making a show of what she called legitimate board powers. If you've never watched a grown woman try to out-bureaucrat a real cop, you're missing out. I introduced myself. Professor Harold Reed, retired constitutional law. Would you like to see our actual HOA documents? And brought out the color-coded originals tabs marking every clause. Article 7 right there in black and white, 72-hour notice, no emergency powers, nothing about brass keys or surprise inspections. Miller took his time flipping between my documents and Gloria's stack of creative writing. His radio crackled. "Unit 12, Sheriff Reed wants an update on the HOA call." Gloria looked like she'd swallowed a fly. Mrs. Henderson finally dropped the act and leaned over the fence for a better listen. By then, the neighborhood was fully engaged. One guy muttering about abuse of power, others nervously shushing him. Miller was all business. Ma'am, there's no legal grounds for emergency entry here. I recommend you follow the standard procedures outlined in your community's agreements. You could practically see Gloria's confidence melt away, her bureaucratic theater falling flat now that someone with real authority was calling her bluff. She stormed off, clipboard and brass key in hand, but I knew it wasn't over. 3 days later, I get a certified letter stack of penalty notices that would make the IRS jealous. $85 for obstructing an inspection. $120 for emergency protocol noncompliance. $30 processing fees tacked on for good measure. You'd think I'd led an armed insurrection, not asked for proper notice. Turns out my neighbors were getting the same threats, some already paid up, scared silent by Gloria's warnings about liens and municipal prosecution. But here's the twist. One of my neighbors, tired of getting squeezed for unauthorized landscaping modifications and made-up insurance liabilities, brought her own envelope over. Together we dug through the paperwork, matching penalty codes reference numbers that didn't line up, even fake meeting minutes backdated to support Gloria's supposed emergency powers. I ran a metadata check, and sure enough, half those documents were created after the fact proof she was making it all up as she went. It wasn't just about me. Gloria was running a full-blown racket, weaponizing administrative theater to wring money out of anyone who questioned her. When you dig into it, the worst part isn't the fake fines or the bogus legal threats. It's the way she made people question their own sanity, doubt their rights, and just give in to keep the peace. That's real power, psychological, not legal, and she knew exactly what she was doing. Once I had the evidence, digital fingerprints, real meeting minutes, anonymously slipped under my door by another board member who'd had enough, I called a meeting. Not an HOA meeting, but a kitchen table summit. We spread out the notices, matched up the false charges, highlighted the fake protocols, and realized we had Gloria cold. But even with all that proof, the hardest part was convincing folks they could push back, because by then Gloria was running a parallel campaign of character assassination, painting me as the neighborhood troublemaker who'd rather argue about legal technicalities than protect community standards. You ever walk into your regular coffee shop and suddenly everyone goes quiet? Old friends studying their mugs, folks you helped with their wills, suddenly can't meet your eye. That's the power of a whisper campaign. Gloria turned my legal defense into a social crime. People want to believe in authority, even fake authority, if it keeps things quiet and simple. But democracy doesn't run on silence and shame. The breaking point came at the next HOA meeting, where Gloria rolled out charts, graphs, dire warnings about property values plummeting if we didn't let her streamline the rules. She had her supporters nodding along until I hooked up my laptop and played the doorbell camera footage, Gloria jamming the key in my lock, threatening legal action, calling 911 over nothing. Then the real meeting minutes, the ones proving she'd invented her powers. Neighbors gasped. People started shouting about money lost. Demands for police intervention started flying. Someone finally stood up and said, "I paid her $800 last year because she threatened to condemn my property." And just like that, the dam broke, story after story, neighbor after neighbor coming forward about fake fines, intimidation, threats of municipal action that never existed. Gloria tried to talk her way out, but by then even her biggest fans had seen too much. 2 days later, she was back on my doorstep, brass key in hand. 2 neighbors awkwardly flanking her as witnesses, and that same officer pulling up looking about as tired as I felt. But this time another car arrived, my son, Sheriff Jordan Reed, stepping out in full uniform. The look on Gloria's face, seeing the real law show up instead of just another audience for her performance, was priceless. Jordan didn't waste words. "Ma'am, we've got evidence of systematic harassment, false emergency reports, and consumer protection violations. This ends now." You should have seen the neighbors scatter. Gloria tried one last bluff. "I'll see you all in court," but by then nobody was buying what she was selling. The HOA board removed her, the fines got tossed, the community apologized, and we set up real oversight to keep it from happening again. The brass key that started all this ended up in a bag of evidence, not as a symbol of authority, but as a cautionary tale. So here's what I learned. And maybe it's worth more than all my years teaching law. Power is only as real as the people who believe in it, and silence always serves the bully. Maybe you've never had a brass key jammed in your lock, but if you don't push back, those keys just multiply. Tell me, what would you have done if it was your door, your neighborhood, your peace on the line? Drop a comment, share your own stories, and don't forget, like, subscribe, and keep your eyes open. Because in every HOA, there's always another Gloria just waiting for someone to hand them the keys.